Live NFL trivia every Tuesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge and have a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation.
I don't think anyone had any expectations for the New York Jets heading into the 1985 season. They were coming off of an awful 1984 season, where after a 6-2 start, they lost 7 of their final 8 games. They had an unproven quarterback in Ken O'Brien who did not look good at all entering the season. And based off of everything that the players were saying, there was a massive rift between them and the coaching staff. The players did not like Joe Walton at all, and he was losing that team in just about every possible way. However, the Jets shocked everyone by going 11-5 and making the postseason. The players went from hating Walton and wanting nothing whatsoever to do with him, to respecting him and loving his coaching style. So that raises the obvious question. What was the turning point? What was the moment that the switch flipped, and that Walton was truly able to win his team over? As it turns out, the turning point was when things looked like they were at their absolute lowest. A horrible loss might have wound up saving the Jets' season, and this is the story behind the turning point in Joe Walton's career. Before I talk about the actual turning point, we need some context heading into the 1985 season, because it will help us to understand why things soured so badly between the two parties. In 1983, the Jets hired Joe Walton to become their next head coach, replacing Walt Michaels. While Michaels had guided the Jets to the AFC Championship the year before, reports indicate that he was pressured into retirement by the higher-ups, because he had some well-documented problems that did not shine a good light on the organization. Even though Walton was a first-time head coach, he knew the players well, having served as the team's offensive coordinator the previous 2 years, both of which ended in playoff appearances. And the Jets were expected to do big things in 1983. Besides the Dallas Cowboys, no team had better odds to win Super Bowl 18 than the Jets. It did not work out that way at all. In year 1, there were signs of trouble brewing between the players and Walton. After one game against the Falcons, where the Jets led 21-0 with a few seconds left in the third quarter, and somehow lost it 27-21, owner Leon Hess had to come into the locker room and address the team, telling them that they had to believe in their head coach. That's always a good sign when the owner is telling the players, just trust me on this one and play for your coach. Later in the season, Walton started pointing fingers at the players, and cut running back Dwayne Crutchfield. Despite the fact that Crutchfield was a third-round pick the year before, was averaging over 4 yards per carry, and was the team's leader in rushing yards after Freeman McNeil got hurt. Punter Chuck Ramsey said that the decision surprised everyone. And after a 24-17 loss to the Bills, where the Bills outscored the Jets 24-3 in the second half, Walton had an all-out meltdown at the post-game press conference, and said on his team, "I don't know what the hell's the matter with them." To say that tensions were high after the 1983 season, especially since it ended with a Super Bowl favorite finishing 7-9, would be an understatement. Would things be better in 1984? Well, they sure started off better. Through 8 games, they were sitting at 6-2, and were right in the thick of things for a spot in the postseason picture. And then, all the walls came crumbling down. The Jets lost 6 of their next 7 games with some absolutely atrocious losses in there. There was a game against the Indianapolis Colts where they scored 5 points and they managed 7 first downs the entire game. There was a game against the New England Patriots where they led 20-3, only to allow 27 unanswered points and lose 30-27. There was a game against the 1-10 Houston Oilers where they led 13-0, only to allow 31 of the next 38 points and lose it 31-20. You know, I'm starting to think that Joe Walton isn't very good at holding onto a lead. No chance that comes back to bite him in a playoff game, right? Already high tensions got even higher. And in week 16, they were about to hit what seemed like the point of no return. Entering the final week of the 1984 season, the Jets had absolutely nothing to play for. They were 7-8, had long been eliminated from postseason contention, and were merely just trying to finish out a season that had gone from promising to disastrous in the second half. How was everything going in the lead up to the game? Well, Walton started by benching a few people and not telling them. Right tackle Marty Lyons found out from the media that he wasn't going to be starting the final game. He acted surprised when he found out the news, and he said on the decision, "You can look at it any way you want." Walton was blaming the veterans frequently, which obviously didn't sit well with the team. And if things weren't already bad enough, when the Jets tried to practice on Thursday in preparation for the game, he kicked the whole team off the field. According to wide receiver Wesley Walker, after the offense messed up a few plays, Walton literally chased the team off the field. Nobody knew why he did it. Not even Walton himself knew why he did it, saying that he didn't have any definite reason for it, but that he felt that the team had a pretty good practice. Now, why you would kick your team off the field after a good practice, I've got no clue, but the players clearly hated this. Lyons called the whole ordeal embarrassing. Fullback Tony Page said he had no clue what was going on or why he did it. And Walker decided to stay on the field anyways. Then came the final game of the season. They lost 41-21 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Unfortunately, there is no footage available from this game, so while I would usually dive into the details of how bad this game was, I won't do that here. However, just know that it wasn't even that close, as the Jets scored a garbage time touchdown that the Buccaneers literally let the Jets score, to the point where the NFL conducted an investigation into the whole incident. If footage from that game ever becomes available, I will do a deep dive into this game, because it's been on my bucket list of things to talk about for a while. The game was a train wreck, and somehow, the day after the game was even more of a train wreck, because on December 17th, instead of the usual send-off and cleaning out of the lockers, Walton decided to yell at his players and make them watch an hour of film of the game. It's the equivalent of holding a practice after the season is over. And the players were not happy about this. Walker said that something like this had never happened before, and defensive lineman Joe Walton was brutally honest, saying that sometimes Walton gets hard to take. The players couldn't stand Walton anymore, and even though he got a contract extension for some reason in the 1985 offseason, entering the first week of the 1985 season, it seemed like things were only getting worse. Now, as I said earlier, no one had any expectations for the Jets entering the 1985 season, and after opening day, anyone who was crazy enough to have the expectations was nowhere to be found, because the first game of the season was that bad. On September 8th, to open up the year, the Jets were traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Raiders. The end result? Incredibly, unbelievably ugly. Nothing went right for the Jets on this day. Marcus Allen kicked off the scoring with a 1-yard touchdown run in the first quarter to make it 7-0. Then the Raiders struck twice more before the halftime break, with Jim Plunkett throwing a 41-yard touchdown pass to Dokie Williams to make it 14-0, and Marcus Allen scoring his second rushing touchdown of the game, with this one coming from 3 yards out. At halftime, the Raiders led it 21-0, and just like they were in the first half, they were in complete control of the second half as well. Stacey Turan had a pick six on Ken O'Brien, taking it 76 yards to the house to make it a 28-0 ballgame. Chris Barr tacked on a 20-yard field goal in the fourth quarter to make it 31-0. And when the final whistle sounded, Los Angeles wound up winning by 5 possessions, taking the game by that 31-0 scoreline. Remember, the 2-point conversion did not exist in 1985. The offensive line was atrocious. New York had just 62 yards rushing, averaging a mere 2.5 yards per carry. When your longest run of the day is 8 yards, and when you have a grand total of 2 runs that go longer than 5 yards, yeah, that's never a good sign. Ken O'Brien got sacked 10 times. Now, in fairness, starting right tackle Marvin Powell was still holding out and looking for a new contract, so the Jets had a bit of a makeshift offensive line out there. Still, O'Brien took an absolute beating, and his play suffered tremendously because of it. He finished the game 16 for 29 with 192 yards passing, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 42.9 passer rating. For some perspective, in the games that O'Brien had started for the Jets up until that point, that 42.9 passer rating was the worst of his career. The Jets turned it over twice. They lost the time of possession battle, they had 193 yards of total offense, they got nearly doubled in total yardage, and they didn't force any turnovers on defense. It goes without saying, but the game was a disaster. This seemed like the end of the road for Walton, right? The players were already turning on him for his conduct over the previous 2 seasons, especially with how 1984 ended. And now you have a humiliating shutout loss on opening day. Well, the crazy part was that this loss turned out to be the turning point in Joe Walton's career. After the game, the players were expecting Walton to lash out at them, as he had done pretty much every single week. They were expecting an irate, angry coach who was ready to point fingers for the embarrassing display out there. Instead, he kept a level head. He talked compassionately to his team. Later in the week, he even met with the players in a fireside chat kind of format. Walton had done a complete 180. After an awful blowout loss, to everyone's surprise, he was calm, cool, and collected, and said that he believed in his team. Now, defensive lineman Barry Bennett said afterwards that during that speech that Walton gave, they didn't know whether he was nuts or whether he truly meant the words that he was saying. However, they realized after that speech that he actually did believe in them. And with that, everyone in the locker room did a complete 180. Whereas they despised Walton before, they now started to play for him. With the players now on Walton's side, they began to buy in. And for the first time in what felt like forever, they actually started to win some games. The Jets finished the 1985 season with a record of 11-5. They were the most improved team in the AFC. And after the season, the players attributed it to the behavior change in Joe Walton after that loss to the Raiders. Joe Walton, who adamantly spoke out against Walton the previous year, was now completely on board, saying everyone wants to be a head coach, but not everyone knows how to be. It took him a while to figure out what to do. And Mark Gastineau said that everyone on the team loved each other now, which is something that definitely did not happen in Walton's first 2 years. Obviously, it wasn't all smooth sailing, as Walton made a really dumb decision during the Thanksgiving game that year against the Lions, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. but he had taken a Jets team that was completely against him and with one speech successfully turned the tide. I'm not sure if there's such a thing as a good loss in the NFL, but if there ever was such a thing, the loss by the Jets to the Raiders to open up that 1985 season is a perfect example of one. Walton's behavior after the game caught the Jets by surprise, and how he acted after the loss made the team buy into what he was selling. It looked like things were at their absolute lowest during that loss. But that loss, as awful as it was, turned out to be the turning point in Joe Walton's coaching career. Because for 1985, and for a lot of the second half of the 1980s, it was all uphill from there. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Monday and Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JRGator9 and subscribe to 60-Second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping with the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.